Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Pursuant to NJSA 10:4, the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this duly and regularly scheduled meeting of the Jackson Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been published and posted in all appropriate locations.
Please, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Hurley? Here. Mr. Stafford Smith?
Here.
Ms. Fritsch? Here. Mr. Book? Here. Mr. Hudak? Here. Ms. Parnaz? Here. Mr. Hyman?
Here.
Ms. Bradley?
Here. Mr. Murphy, do we have any resolutions this evening?
We do. We have two resolutions this evening. The first resolution being 2024-07. That is the resolution of the Zoning Board of the Township of Jackson granting variance relief for an in-ground pool, 15 by 30 by 10 cabana, and 6-foot solid fence in the front yard on property located at 1 Prince Way. Eligible to vote on this resolution are Mr. Hudak, Ms. Parnaz, Mr. Book, Mr. Stafford Smith, and Ms. Bradley.
Roll call, please.
Thank you.
Roll call now, please.
Mr. Stafford Smith?
Yes.
Brian, did you say Ms. Fritsch?
No.
Okay. Mr. Book? Yes. Mr. Hudak? Yes. Ms. Parnaz? Yes. Ms. Bradley?
Second resolution for the evening is resolution number 2024-08. That's a resolution of the Zoning Board of the Township of Jackson appointing a replacement recording secretary effective January 1st, 2024, for the remainder of the term July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. Eligible to vote on this particular resolution are Mr. Hurley, Mr. Stafford Smith, Ms. Fritsch, Ms. Bradley, Mr. Hudak, Ms. Parnaz, and Mr. Book.
Motion and a second, please. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Stafford Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Fritsch?
yes,
Mr. Book? Yes. Mr. Hudak? Ms. Parnaz? Yes. Ms. Bradley?
That concludes the resolutions for this evening.
Liz, do we have any minutes this evening?
No.
Okay. We're going to move forward to we have a voucher before us from the Township of Jackson for the recording secretary for this evening for $175. I need a motion and a second to pay the voucher, please.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Stafford Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Fritsch?
yes,
Mr. Book? Mr. Hudak? Ms. Parnaz? Ms. Bradley?
Mr. Murphy, do we have any announcements this evening?
Yes, we have several. With regard to the agenda, we have several applications that have been carried. Application number 2, 60-acre reserve, amended site plan approval 239-M, block 8001, lot 5. That application has been carried to the March 6th, 2024 meeting of the Jackson Township Zoning Board of Adjustment. The applicant will be required to notice. Application number 3, James Hughes, 280 Faraday Avenue, amended site plan 261-1 with use variance 3479. That application has been carried to the March 20th, 2024 meeting of the Jackson Township Zoning Board of Adjustment. No additional notice will be required, and the applicant has waived time. Then we have number 5, that is applicant BMOJ Inc., preliminary final site plan 899, previously approved use variance 3316, block 6401, lot 22 and 21. That application has been withdrawn and was withdrawn on January 20th of 2024. Accordingly, resolution will be prepared for the withdrawal. And then we have application number 6, which is Kahala to Brookwood 4, preliminary final site plan 880 with use variance 3441, Block 6002, Lot 2 and 3. That application was withdrawn on January 19th of 2024, and accordingly, a resolution will be prepared noting that it's withdrawn.
Madam Chair Lady, question. I'm just curious if these applications have been withdrawn. Is the entire application withdrawn, including the variance that's been granted?
I don't believe that the previously approved variance would be withdrawn, but this particular
Well,
application.
it was subject to the site plan. If they're withdrawing the site plan.
I will have to double check on that, Mr. Hurley.
Okay.
I'm not sure of that.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for raising your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. If you'd each please state your name and provide your position with the board.
Evan Hill, Board Engineer.
Ernie Peters, Board Planner.
Jeffrey Poporo, zoning officer.
Thank you.
Okay. Executive session.
Madam Chair, if I may articulate a resolution to enter executive session, we'll need a member to vote to approve and adopt the resolution in a second, followed by a roll call. Whereas the zoning board of the Township of Jackson is subject to certain requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4, and whereas Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12, provides that an executive session not open to the public may be held for certain specified purposes when authorized by resolution. Whereas it is necessary for the zoning board of the Township of Jackson to discuss in a session not open to the public matters relating to the item or items authorized by NJSA 10:4-B12-12B. This evening, those matters being an attorney-client privilege discussion regarding personnel matters. Now therefore be resolved by the zoning board of the Township of Jackson to enter executive session for discussion subject to attorney-client privilege related to personnel. More specifically, strike that. It is anticipated that deliberation conducted in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon determination that public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. As requested, may I have a motion to approve and adopt the resolution?
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Stafford Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Fritsch?
Yes.
Mr. Book? Yes. Mr. Hudak?
Yes.
Ms. Parnas? Yes. Ms. Bradley?
I promise this is not going to take very long. I really don't anticipate more than 10 to 15 minutes.
So moved.
Mr. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Stafford Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Fritsch,
Yes.
Mr. Book,
Yes.
Ms. Parnas. Mr. Hudak.
Mr. Go ahead. Mr. Hudak. He's gone.
Oh, Mr. Hyman,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley.
Yes.
Thank you. Just for the record, I want to note that Mr. Hudak had to leave due to another engagement. So let the record reflect that as of 7:40, Mr. Hudak is no longer in attendance.
Matters for discussion this evening, Mr. Murphy?
Yes, we do have at least one matter for discussion, if not multiple. As the public and the board are aware, I presume Mr. Riccardi, who was a long-serving member of the Jackson Township Zoning Board of Adjustment, as well as other public service appointments in Jackson Township, has moved out of town. So he did resign from the zoning board effective January 26th of 2024. That resignation was accepted by council. And so the zoning board is currently short one regular member, but also no longer has a vice chair. As a result, I would ask that the board consider nominating a new replacement vice chair for the remainder of this term, running up until June 30th of 2024.
I would nominate Janine Fritsch as the vice chair.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Now that we have a motion and a second for Ms. Fritsch, Ms. Fritsch, my question to you is, do you accept the nomination as vice chair?
Yes.
Okay. Now you may roll call.
Mr. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Stafford Smith.
Yes.
Does Ms. Fritsch vote for herself?
Yep.
Ms. Fritsch,
Yes.
Mr. Book,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Parnas,
And he can vote.
Mr. Hyman.
Yes.
Congratulations, Ms. Frisch. You have been named the vice chair of the zoning board.
Congratulations.
With that-
Janine, you have to change chairs again.
Janine, remain seated
Thank you.
for now.
Thank you.
All right, we're not going to do that today. However, that does now raise a new issue. Janine was our secretary and cannot serve as both vice chair and secretary. So I would ask that the board consider nominations for the position of board secretary.
I nominate Mr. Stafford Smith.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Stafford Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Fritsch,
Yes.
Mr. Book,
Yes.
Ms. Parnas. Mr. Hyman,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Stafford Smith. You are the new secretary of the zoning board of adjustment. And since the board is determined to make my night interesting, Mr. Stafford Smith was our acting secretary. And so I would ask the board to please consider nominations for the position of acting secretary.
Through the chair, I'd like to nominate Ms. Parnas for acting secretary.
Second.
Ms. Parnas, do you accept that nomination? You may have a roll call.
Mr. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Stafford Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Fritsch,
Yes.
Mr. Book,
Yes.
Ms. Parnez,
Yes.
Mr. Hyman,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley.
Yes.
Congratulations, Ms. Parnas. You are now the acting secretary. Okay. I promise that was it. Now that everybody shifted around. Okay, I believe that was the last matter for discussion that I had this evening. We want to replace the chair? Oh, no, we're not doing that.
Oh, great.
That's exactly what she said. Okay, we're going to move on to application number 1, Dan Rack Excavating LLC, use variance 3458. Mr. Pfeffer, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. Adam Pfeffer, attorney on behalf of the applicant. So just on the onset, I just wanted to make a couple of opening statements. The first one is, first, happy we are speaking on this application. We've been listed numerous times here, and not the fault of the board members, we were either not heard because we were very late in the agenda or that there were not 7 members. As we were seeking a use variance. This application, again, we're seeking a use variance approval to permit storage and modification of shipping containers in the R1 residential zone. I do have 2 witnesses that I plan on calling for our application, one being Mr. Borden, our planner, the other being the owner and the applicant, Mr. Rack. Unfortunately, Mr. Rack, on today's date for this meeting, was away. He did tell me, and I can't recall if it was a family vacation or business, but he's away out of state. So I did reach out to Mr. Murphy just to indicate that. I would like to start the application this evening. We'll put our planning testimony on, but Mr. Rack's testimony is very important. He's the operator, and we are seeking a use variance, and for his business, it's critical for his testimony. So this evening, what I would like to do again is have Mr. Borden walk us through the application. We'll put many of our proofs on. Again, if I think there are some members of the public who have questions and comments, and they could, all that, they could have the opportunity to make those comments and cross-examine Mr. Borden if needed. But I would ask that the board that reserve for whatever the next meeting is, we'll come back with the second, with my second witness, that will be Mr. Rack.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeffer. So, for the benefit of the board and for transparency purposes, as Mr. Pfeffer did indicate, he did contact me earlier today to advise of the situation with his applicant. I took a look at the upcoming agendas as well as the number of times that this had been listed. And I know that there are members of the public who have either repeatedly appeared and been told to go home, or have not appeared and continued to follow up on the status of the application for the purposes of appearing. And given the fact that this application has been listed so many times, and given the fact that we do have members of the public interested in the application, I did not believe that it would be in the best interest of either the board or the township or the public to carry this application when we do have Mr. Borden available to begin the application. Ultimately, it's the board's decision as to whether or not you will carry this application or whether you will permit Mr. Pfeffer to reserve the right to call Mr. Rack at a later date. However, taking a look at the agendas for the board, I did believe it was in the best interest of the board to at least get a portion of the testimony done this evening, considering the fact that we had 4 applications go off of this agenda. And if we take a look at our upcoming agendas, you will see why I made that administrative determination. So with that said, Mr. Pfeffer is here with Mr. Borden to present, as I understand, planning testimony at this particular time. I understand that the request is to reserve to another meeting for the purposes of finishing his application, which again, I don't take any legal issue with. But again, I'd like to remind the public, if the public is here for this application, that if the board does go forward this evening and does take Mr. Borden's testimony as to planning issues, the public comments as well as any questions, concerns, opinions, they will be limited to the scope of Mr. Borden's testimony. Mr. Borden, as I understand it, is not providing operational testimony. I believe that is what Mr. Rack is going to testify to. So this evening, public comments will not be as to the operation itself, but solely limited to the scope of Mr. Borden's testimony. Now, if Mr. Borden gets into operations, well then, we'll have another discussion. But however, I just want to advise the public that that is the position that we're in. Out of fairness to all of you who continue to show up, I wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to at least be heard in some fashion and at least get this application moving. And now I'll leave it to the board to decide whether or not they want to go forward.
Are there any objections from the board of moving forward?
Not by me.
We have no problem moving forward.
So we'll proceed, so just from a procedural perspective, we will permit Mr. Pfeffer and Mr. Borden to begin the application. We will permit the request to reserve at the end of Mr. Borden's testimony. And we will reschedule, following the testimony of Mr. Borden and the public comments, the meeting to a date certain so that no further notice will be required.
Thank you. So again, good evening, and thank you for that, for those courtesies. I did hand out, and I'm not sure, I think Ian usually pre-marks his exhibits. I did hand out one additional exhibit, so I'm not sure what to mark it. But what I handed out is a resolution from this board from 1988. This property has been in commercial use since approximately 1955. This board there was a violation issued back in 1988 on or about, and that owner of the property came before the board for seeking an interpretation of the use. It's important because while the application this evening is for a use variance, I do believe that many of the exact uses were already approved based upon the pre-existing use and then the resolution from 1988 confirming those uses. Obviously, there's been a difference of opinion between myself and the township, which has led us to make this application to either, if you want to call, either expand the uses or to add this use. But when we get into the testimony, I believe that it really falls within the same definitions. And again, the resolution is not very lengthy. I asked the board that they just review it, but to point out that the resolution indicates that the property had been utilized continuously since 1955 for truck, automotive, and heavy equipment repair and/or maintenance. It goes on to state, as a result of the continuous nature of the use of the property predating the existing township zoning ordinance, that the use of the property by the applicant for a repair garage and with a single-family dwelling upon the property is a valid pre-existing non-conforming use as defined in the terms of the Municipal Land Use Act. And that the use described by the applicant at that time and the applicant's witnesses that it's a valid pre-existing non-conforming use. So it's important because I don't want the board to think that this applicant is coming in on just a residential R1 property and saying, hey, here you go, we're going to be doing a new commercial use. It really has always been a commercial property. And then based upon that, well, I'll let Mr. Borden then go into the, yes.
Just a procedural question. Mr. Borden, before I swear you in, how many exhibits do you have to introduce this evening? Just two? So we'll mark the resolution as A3
Thank you.
For the purposes of the record. Again, the board can take judicial notice of this resolution based upon the fact that it is a government document and a memorialized resolution. Resolution number being 41-88, but that will be marked A3 for the purposes of the record.
Thank you. With that, I would ask that Mr. Borden be sworn in.
Excuse me, through the chair. Mr. Pfeffer, I take your comments, I get it as you read through the resolutions. But no, at least from my perspective as a board member, the devil's going to be in the details when your client gets into the operational testimony. I suggest and I hope that he's going to go into very specific detail on the history as to exactly what was done way back in 1955, all the way through 68 and 88, and relate those so that those repairing equipment and storage parts is delineated quite specifically. That's in the 68 resolution, and in the 88 resolution, you know, they talk about truck, automotive, and heavy equipment repair, and how that's all going to compare and contrast with what he's currently doing there and what he intends to continue to do. And I expect that's testimony we're going to hear from him.
Yes, I could provide that, but I also, in addition, I apologize, I did not make copies of it, but I will provide prior to the next meeting. In the 1988, for this, the 1980 application, there was a lengthy statement of operations that brought you through the entire history of the property from on about the 1955 through 1988, and then my client could take you from 1988 more or less through where we are today.
That was not included in the package that I received.
And I did not give you the background to the resolution. I gave you I just went to the resolution. I apologize. I do have it. I have the copies of it. I got it from Mr. Purpuro. I will provide it to your counsel. But there was an entire application that gave in. It was actually several hundred pages. It has all the notices that went out. I actually am reviewing it. I saw that my parents, or the house I grew up in, was the first house on the list, as the 200-foot list. So I have no problem. We'll provide that. I'll email it over, and then we will have that testimony as well.
Thank you.
If we can have Mr. Borden sworn in.
Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you would, please state your name, provide your affiliation, and your credentials, please.
Certainly. Ian Borden, Lakewood, New Jersey, president of Professional Design Services located in Lakewood. A licensed professional planner, state of New Jersey for many years. A graduate of Rutgers University more than 40 years ago, and been testified in front of this and many other boards throughout the state as a professional planner.
Mr. Borden, the zoning board accepts your credentials.
Thank you. So I will, it's a little difficult for my testimony because the intent was to have the owner testify first. But so I know what you said, Mr. Murphy, about operational, but to testify on my part, I have to dig in, I have to brush over that, otherwise I have nothing to talk about, which may be the best outcome of the night.
I presume that to be the case, so it was a warning to the applicant.
But to quickly go through just the general surrounding property, the property is Lot 52 in Block 21401. It does contain 8.1 acres. It is on the north side of White Road. On the screen is the top page of what this is the variant. We provided a 2-page variance plan. This is the first page, so it would say 1. And the property is shaded. Again, White Road is on the right side, up and down. North is to the top left. And as you can see, it's a flag lot with a long driveway in the stem, and then you have the rear portion of the lot. The surrounding properties are zoned all R1. Certainly the properties to the west and the south are developed with residential houses, as well as a bit to the north. The larger property to the northeast is the McAuliffe School. There's as noted by Mr. Pfeffer and as denoted in the 1988 letter or interpretation resolution, the site has been operated since 1955 as a repair garage. That was verified in the 88 resolution, has been operated consistently since then. Personally, I'm familiar with Dan Rack, who's the applicant, for more than 25 years. We're not friends, personally, but Rack Excavating, which Dan did and I assume still owns, was an site excavation company that is well known in town. They did a lot of work on many projects that we did. So I have a lot of familiarity with his operations of the repair garage and what he was doing on the site for many years. I don't know how long he's owned it, but again, the Rack Excavating I know have been around for quite a few years. What is being requested is, again, as Mr. Pfeffer explained, a use to store and modify metal storage or shipping containers. Let me go to A2, if you don't mind, Anthony. Oh boy, that came out like absolute crap. I'm sorry about that. It's supposed to be a color, the copies you have, the board members, you see it's a color aerial, so I don't know what happened to that file. So it makes it a little bit hard to read. We'll certainly make sure that it's a color before the next hearing, because it's almost illegible. So what we have here is this is the end of the property, the larger portion of the property. You can see the cul-de-sac that was in front with the homes and along the west with the homes. So this large cleared area is the portion of the property that's been occupied and developed for more than 50 years. I think it's important to note that as part of this application, we're not proposing any new development. We're not proposing to do anything other than occupy and utilize the existing developed portions of the property. There is an existing home. You'll note the 1988, I keep wanting to say variance, the resolution describes there being a single-family home that was pre-existing and was permitted to remain. That's on the eastern portion, and then next to that is the repair garage where I'm pointing right now. And again, that was also referenced in the 88 resolution and remains in operation today. I think important to note that to the north, west, and east, there is existing forest that will propose to remain undisturbed. Again, we're not proposing any development as part of this application. That area to the north has a width of approximately 130 feet. To the west is 25, and to the south, it's 20 feet. So those forested areas would remain undisturbed. The property is located in the R1 zone. The use is commercial, obviously, that's not permitted in the R1 zone. We do have the use that's been pre-existing, non-conforming, and verified by this 88 resolution. I think it's necessary to touch into the operations just a little bit. Again, I understand that Dan will give testimony, but I had extensive conversations with Dan as preparing for this months and months ago, so I have my notes from my discussions with him. But basically, the storage container use is they acquire the storage containers from shipping companies. They're used, obviously. And what they propose to do is to rent them, sell them, and they also modify them. And when they modify them, they can make them into an office trailer, I've seen where they do a mobile snack, like almost a food truck type thing. And the modifications are done much in the same fashion as they perform the auto repair. It's much of the same. It's the same people, the same equipment. Again, the same portions of the property that they currently use for truck and auto repair. There is, which is impossible, you can see it on the copy I gave the board members. It's much more legible. It's absolutely impossible to see on the exhibit on the screen. But if you look at your 11 by 17 I handed out, there's shipping containers evident in the aerial that are stored typically on the western portion of the property. This aerial is dated March of 23. I think since we're going to come back again, we'll update the aerial as well. The aerials are available through this service that we have. They fly at about every 2 or 3 months. So I would expect, I mean, I don't think it'll show anything differently, but we'll make sure we update that and make sure that the digital file, I've never seen a color digital file come out that washed out black and white, so I have no idea what happened there. Again, Dan will explain this, but what they explained to me is that they basically get two or so deliveries a day, coming or going, and that what you see on the map as being stacked containers are stacked no more than 2 high, which is typically about 20 feet. Each container is about 10 feet tall. So any of the storage of the containers as they are renting, selling, or modifying them is a maximum of 2 containers high. I think it's important to get Dan's testimony on the record to really put forth to emphasize the planning testimony, because obviously it's hard to argue no impact unless you have the absolute operational testimony. But I would say that I mean, I'll get in, I don't know if I should do the enhanced purposes of zoning now or after. I probably should do it after Dan testifies. But I think I just want to lay, obviously in the case of this use, we're dealing with a commercial use in a residential zone. The Medici case applies. We have to, and it's not a inherently beneficial use, obviously. So we have to show that the use promotes the general welfare because the site is particularly suitable. And in this case, and I'll segue this into the enhanced purposes of zoning once Dan gives his testimony. But I think, as I had said, a couple of key points that will factor into that, and that is that this activity only utilizes the areas previously disturbed on the site and currently used for the lawful commercial or industrial, whatever, auto or truck repair activities. And that includes within the existing garage. There is no activities other than the storage and of these containers and the modification. As I said, they're stacked no more than 2 containers high, and that we have no proposed development on the site, no disturbance of any previously undisturbed properties. What I skipped over, I guess, in my discussion, I should have, but just catch up, is that the site does not have any environmental constraints. There are no wetlands, no wetland buffers, no flood hazard areas, no riparian buffers. So I think that's about, Adam, all I can testify to until Dan testifies, and then I'll segue that into the purposes of zoning and complete the planning aspects of it.
So I suppose it's also your intent to recall Mr. Borden as well?
Yes, I'm not going anywhere. God willing.
Fair enough. Okay. Obviously, we can open up to the board. Any questions for Mr. Borden?
Mr. Hurley?
Mr. Borden or Mr. Pfeffer, can you tell me exactly what's being applied here for? Is it a D1 or is it a D2? If it is a D2, which portion is the D2? And if it is a D1, which portion is the D1?
Right. I think it would be a D1 for the shipping container use particularly.
So for storage and maintenance
Yes,
is the D1.
yes.
Is there any D2?
I don't believe so, no.
So you're not seeking a D2 at all? It's just a D1 for the
Yes.
storage and the maintenance?
Yes.
Well, would not the addition of the storage and maintenance be an expansion of the previous use?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Yeah, let me revisit that. I was reading the wrong part of my notes. Let me revisit that, and that's quite possible we'll be seeking a D2 as well. Yeah. I'm sorry.
You're going to revisit that next time, not tonight?
So it's a conversation that I've had, I discussed, and Mr. Peters' letter raised it, and it actually made me scratch my
Right.
head for a moment, because the 88 resolution, right, was not granting a use variance. It was granting a pre-existing non-conforming use. So the question, it falls in a little bit of a gray area, right? So we are seeking, the argument is to expand the uses, right? Because the other uses are previously, I call them approved, however they got them, either pre-existing or, because obviously there wasn't a use variance that was actually granted. So it is an expansion per se. However, if no use variance was ever granted, how are we expanding that? So it was raised in the letter, and it is something that we're going to have to testify to. An abundance of caution, again, we're going to give the testimony for a new use variance, because again, the excavating business is not in question. That's not the issue. It's the addition of the storage containers.
All right. The only reason I raise it is the resolution that was adopted in 88, I think was 88, that says that
No
the,
expansion.
cannot be expanded, right, unless it's in accordance with the municipal land use law, which means that's why you're here.
Good.
Right? But it seems to me that a new use creates a problem if there's an expansion of a non-conforming use. It becomes a different standard. And so I just want to make it clear, what you're seeking is a D1.
No, we'll clarify that at our next appearance.
And along with the testimony that you'll hear from Mr. Rack, I believe, even though we're now adding the storage container, that it falls really within the same types of work that were in that 88 resolution, which again, all relates back to operator testimony. But yes, it is a area that needs to be addressed, and there definitely needs to be testimony on.
Well, I noticed that Mr. Rack, I know he's coming, acquired title, I forget the date, it was either the 90s or the early 20s. But anyway, I would like to hear testimony, as Mr. Book had indicated, I'd like to hear testimony as to what that prior use was. I've read the two resolutions, one that was earlier than the 88, which denied the use that was requested, and then there was a subsequent application, 88, for a interpretation, which allowed the repairs, automotive repairs, and a single-family home. I drove and looked at that property. I saw the garage. It looks like a recent garage, three bays, and a residence. But are there other structures that I couldn't tell from? I didn't go back to look at it. I just stopped at the entrance. But I couldn't tell from the aerial as to whether or not there are other structures there. Mr. Borden, you visited the place, I presume. Is there something more than a single-family residence? Is there single more in a form of a structure than the three-car garage?
No, other than possibly a small shed or so, right? You are accurate, and it's the house and the garage.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Borden? Evan and Ernie, will you be holding your questions, or did you want to ask any questions tonight? Okay. All right. Mr. Pfeffer, would you like to have any statement before I open it to the public? Okay. All right, I'm going to open this to the public. Anybody wishing to come forward, please do so.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Shmuel Eckstein.
I'm just going to ask you, I got to swear you in.
Oh, okay.
Please raise your right hand. Thank you very much. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. If you would please state your name, spell your last, and provide your address.
It's Shmuel, S-H-M-U-E-L. The last name is Eckstein, E-C-K-S-T-E-I-N. The address is 8 Linda Drive. So I am on the west side of that property. There's a lot more to this application that's not really being discussed over here. I've been dealing with this already for over 2 years. When I moved in there 5 years ago, I had a nice, quiet backyard. There was nothing going on in the property behind me. And we were so thankful that we had this beautiful backyard with nothing behind us. One day there was I heard a tractor back there. And I went back there to see who was there, and it was a guy, he was a landscaping company who was mulching some stuff. And he said, yeah, he's using the property for about 2 months. He's going to be mulching some stuff, but if it bothers, if any noise, anything, he'll shut it down, whatever. And he disappeared after like a month and never heard another thing. And then one day, 2 years ago in December, suddenly I see a shipping container in the backyard. Okay, that's strange. The next day, there were 5 more. Now, the applicant is making this sound like this little benign thing, a couple of shipping containers. I happen to have some pictures that I took today. There are hundreds of containers back there. My backyard, I don't know if I could pass these around.
If you,
I have-
you have to show them to the
You
applicant's
can just show me
attorney.
if I
This is
could-
the view
if
from
I
my,
could just-
yeah, this is the view
just-
from my
just-
backyard.
Just 1 sec. Can you just represent that you took these pictures
I took
yourself?
these pictures, I have them on my
And-
phone.
And they're taken today?
And that was
And
taken today.
they're from your backyard
From my
towards
backyard.
the property in question?
Yes.
I have no objection to them being
So-
presented.
Thank you.
They
How many-
are stacked.
Just one sec, one
Yeah.
sec. There's procedure issues
Okay.
here. How many photographs do you have?
1, 2, 3, oh, given 3, 4. 3 is good.
And you
Three.
took, same question, you took all the pictures?
Yes.
They were all taken by you
All
today?
taken by me today.
And they're all from your property,
Yes.
facing the property in question?
Yes.
No objections to the pictures?
Thank you very much. Those 3 photographs will be marked O1 for the purpose of the record. Okay, you may continue, sorry. I
Okay.
just need to get that done.
Not a problem. I've never done this before. They are stacked 2 high, which means that they're 22 feet high. It's 5 across, straight across my whole property line. I believe it's right up against my property line. I don't know, I haven't seen any site map done on this, really, any site work done that shows that it's not. They are 4 deep, which means that just against my property, there are 40 containers. And then from the side, you could see that there's many, many more behind that. So there must be hundreds of containers. I haven't gone into the property to confirm that, but there are hundreds of containers there. This is not just a little commercial property that they're trying to do. This is an industrial company. It's industrial work, converting these, so you hear tractors moving these things around all day and converting these things into usable houses or offices or whatever else they're using them for. I know that in the beginning I called Mr. Papuro in December of, what was that, 2022. of 2021. It's 2 years and 2 months ago. I can't add anymore. And he even came down to my property, looked at it, and as soon as he saw that, he said, no way that that could stand over here. I was in front of the Township Council, I believe it was in February or March of that year, and I addressed the council about this, asked if there's anything we could do. Everybody on the council, the mayor was there that night also, said there's absolutely no way this could go on. The lawyer said, we just got to keep fining them. I know that they had a stop work order, which never stopped anybody. They kept working right through it. They did have one court date where they got a $250 fine, and that was the only thing that was done about this in the last 2.5 years. I know I'm not allowed to talk about the operations part of this. I don't believe that this property has been continuously used since then. As I said, when I moved in, it was acquired property. I don't believe that Mr. Rack is really the owner of this company. This is a company called Chris Container, which is a company that's been around for many years before this. They moved into this property, which was owned by Rack, and possibly he bought a share in their company. That's what I believe. But this company has been around long before him, long before they moved in here. And he was not an owner of the company at that point. They needed a property that they could move in hundreds of containers and nobody would say anything. And they found a nice quiet property and moved the stuff in. You know, the amount of noise and traffic and trucks that we have going, it's not 2 trucks a day. There are 15 trucks a day coming in there. And they want to do this from 7 in the morning. This is going right behind people's houses on that little driveway that they have is a dirt driveway. It's wide enough exactly to carry 1 truck, which means that those trucks are bouncing up and down, going up this driveway right behind all of our houses. At 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 days a week. And they can't even find that driveway. They park on White Road, idling in front of everybody's houses, you know, trying to find where the road is that they're supposed to go into. And it's, you know, the quality of life, everything about this is wrong. And, I think I'll leave it at that. And I don't know if anybody wants to see these pictures.
They're going to go to
Okay, so you'll take?
I was just saying, can we pass this? Yes.
Mr. Epstein? Please don't go away yet.
Sure, no problem.
Madam Chair Lady, questions of Mr. Epstein?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Epstein, as part of your statement that I didn't get all of, you had mentioned something about another company that was there before Mr. Rack owned the property. Can you repeat that?
Not before Mr. Rack. Mr. Rack owned the property. It seems that he was subleasing it at one point to a landscaping company. If I remember correctly, maybe it was Dave's Landscaping.
Can you give me an estimate of when that occurred?
It was before December of 2021, so it was probably, I would probably say March, April of 21 is probably when I saw it, somewhere around then.
You also had mentioned something about you moved in, what, 5 or 6 years ago?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Can you describe the property for me 5 years ago?
It's a 1-acre property.
Not yours.
Oh, their property.
Their property, yeah. What it looked like then?
It was just an empty lot. You know, maybe on the far end of the lot there was a building there. I don't think I ever saw anybody go in or out. I never heard a sound out of that place.
You did mention that you saw these containers coming on. Can you tell me when that started?
That was in December of 21.
Okay. all I have. Thank you very much.
Can I add one more thing that I forgot? I believe also that there were many trees that were cleared out in this property to make room for this, that were not, the trees were there before, and trees were cleared out to make room for some of these containers. And I would love to see the permit for that.
And do you know when that took place, sir? When the trees were removed?
It was, I mean, I saw tractors there clearing the property. It was also in December. I saw them clearing property there. I know I've heard from other neighbors that there were more trees that were taken down also.
So you're saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're saying December of 2021?
Yeah, that's when they were clearing the property out, making it usable for what they needed. You know, there were mounds of dirt and things in the middle of the property that had to be leveled out and to make it possible to put these containers there.
But just to reiterate what Mr. Hurley said, so for the first 3 years that you were living in your home, you didn't see any of this, there was none of this noise, other than that landscaper who came in?
Correct. It was nice, quiet property.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have any additional questions?
I do. Sir, when you took these pictures, how far were you? Did you like zoom in, or were you just standing there and just took the pictures?
I mean, I walked to the edge of my property through, I do have trees in the back, which in the middle of the winter, there's no leaves on it. During the summer, I don't really see the containers. During 6 months of the winter, it's totally open. So I just walked to the edge of my property and took the picture.
Thank you.
Is it normally 2 containers, one on top of each other, or
Yes,
there
it's
sometimes
been there,
more?
It's been there since
Right.
day one. It's
My
been too high.
question is there a third
No,
one on
I've
top
never
of it?
seen a third one, at least not lining my property. I don't know what's going on inside.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Good evening. If you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. If you would please state your name, spell your last, and provide your address, please.
My name is Yitzchak Hertz. The last name is spelled Hertz. And my address is one that Mr. Pfeffer might recognize. It's 103 Bellevue Avenue, Jackson, New Jersey. Okay, if I may begin. The reason why Mr. Pfeffer will, I believe, recognize that address is I believe that's the childhood home that he grew up in. And I moved there 2.5 years ago. So he may be familiar, you know, we're going back over here to 1955 and going down memory lane, 1988. So I'm sure you've all noticed that there's been a little bit of growth since then. I'm sure, you know, back in the days in 1955 or 1988, there wasn't such a population. And I remember I was born in Lakewood, and I grew up, and Cross Street was a horse farm. I used to go horseback riding there. I don't know if you've ever recently gone down Cross Street. It's a traffic nightmare. There's a lot of wonderful things going on there, but there's a price to pay. So the traffic has gotten a lot worse in Lakewood, as we all know. Now, Mr. Pfeffer's attempting to present that it's pretty much the same as what has been going on. I find that difficult to believe because, not just to believe, if they're fixing a truck, Mr. Pfeffer, if I may ask you, how many times a day would you think there was ingress and outgrowing into that very small driveway with that operation being run?
It's a question for the operator, and he'll be here, and I'm not under...
No, I'm asking not what's operational
Not my
now.
opinion. You're going to have a question for the operator. Here you can make a statement about the application, but as far as my opinion about something happening, that's not for a discussion.
I'm saying you were there as a child.
No, I do concur with Mr. Pfeffer on this. That's a question for the operator, and again, no operational testimony has been presented tonight. That would have to wait for when Mr. Rack is here.
Okay,
Mr. Pfeffer's not a witness, he's just the applicant's attorney.
perfect.
Thank you.
So my point is that there are about 22 trucks. And let me just describe for you what happens. I do have video, and I would like to ask if next time I would have a chance to present the video. Is that a possibility if I submit it before? So what would I need to do to make sure that it's done properly? Okay, thank you. So I do have some video. Now, the truck drivers, they come, and sometimes there's a truck going out, sometimes there's a truck coming in. They park on the side of White Road. They want to help the guy get out, so they stop the traffic there. I've called the police numerous times, and they need to go stop the traffic in both ways. This could be at 9 o'clock, 9:30. Lots of people take carpool to school. And they stop the traffic to get out. Now, it's kind of difficult to maneuver. I'm going to guess it's maybe 15, 16 feet wide. It's a little dirt road. I mean, you could look at it. You can see that little strip that's barely visible. If you pull up the other one, could you please pull up the other one, please? The previous slide, please.
I think he's referring to A1.
Exactly. So you can see how very thin that is. It's between two residential properties, and just to state where my house is, 103 Bellevue, that's the north side. I'm on the south side of White Street, the corner. So the trucks pull over, stop White Road. Sometimes they have to swing widely into the next oncoming lane to be able to maneuver into that very thin driveway. They sometimes don't get it on the first time. I've had times that they've knocked down my bushes when they're backing up. So it's a safety hazard. It's a nuisance. White Road is getting busier and busier. They're going to be making a light and things on the corner. I don't think really, honestly, my esteemed board, I don't think it's a question of operational testimony. I think shipping containers coming in and out, 22 trucks, I think it's very clear that that has no similarity to fixing some trucks where there's no in and no out. So to say it's the same people working is really missing the point. We're talking about a substantial difference and a serious quality of life issues for myself and the people around and all the people that use White Street to get to cross and to go about their daily business. That's really my only point that I want to make tonight, that it's in no way similar. I did hear that there was, just from what was mentioned tonight, there was a denial to something prior to 1988 in an expansion, I believe. And I think it definitely needs a variance. And, we've been served well by the Jackson Township, the zoning board. We put a lot of faith in our elected officials, and their job is, and they've done it admirably, to maintain the reason why zoning laws are there, to, make sure that we preserve, and it's not the Wild West. Other townships maybe have let it go, but we all moved to Jackson because we wanted something better, and we expect it, and we're confident that you'll all do the right thing in preserving the integrity of our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward, sir.
Are there
Any questions? Any questions for this?
I have a question, but not of Mr. Hertz. Since he's pointed out this exhibit, can somebody tell me what that is?
It's an outlet on the wall. There's no,
What is it?
if they turn off
Thank
the-
you.
Uh,
I fall for that too.
It's not part of the display, it's behind that, it's projected onto that.
I'm sorry. What is it? Oh, it's a cover. Okay. Okay.
It's the same on that wall.
Yeah.
that wall? You see how they have them over there?
For whatever reason tonight it doesn't.
On the
look
same
as
wall
well.
across? That big wall, see the outlet cover? They're the same over there, but it's a reflection. It's a reflection because of the, yeah.
See, there's one here, one here, one here.
Yeah, it's the same on that.
I thought I was going to have to call my granddaughter to see how it was.
Respectfully, I agree. They are, for some reason, a lot more pronounced this evening.
Usually you don't see them,
Yeah.
right? Usually you don't see them.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
When you said that, I was like, what plug? And then I realized, because the one really is a plug, I was like, oh, wow. So, thank you so much for coming forward,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Good evening. If you would, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. If you would please state your name, spell your last, and provide your address.
Eli, E-L-I, last name Newman, N-E-U-M-A-N-N, address 6 Kevin Court, Jackson.
Thank you.
I'm going to reiterate quite a bit of what the prior two people stated. This application is very much, we'll call it bending the truth, for lack of a better term. I've been living here since August of 2014. There was no activity on that site whatsoever, not even the landscaping that Mr. Eckstein spoke about. Quiet, completely empty, until my first record of it, with multiple emails to Mr. Papuro, to Mr. Murphy as well, with multiple video proofs, was, I believe, it was before December of 2020, most definitely. The video proof I started taking was in April of 2022, and continuing up until as most recently as September, about all the traffic. This was eloquently stated, the trucks driving in and out, et cetera. So give or take, I'll go, August 2021 was when anything first started happening. My backyard is separated by, give or take, 200 feet of property line. However, Mr. Pfeffer had stated, and the engineer had stated, that there's a house back there. I'm going to call their bluff. There hasn't been anybody living on that property in many years. It's locked all day. I apologize. It's locked all night. I don't believe anybody can get in and out when there's a chain link fence going across the driveway. It's an office, being used as an office by the people who utilize the site for it. They're going on a, quote unquote, small scale automotive self-repair, which is what I believe was the 1988 approval, was for a homeowner himself to work on his own automobiles. Definitely not in that 3-car garage like he had stated, which is definitely new. We are obviously in an R1 zone. It's a full-fledged industrial process going on there. It's like one of the other applications that said as well, it is subleased by a company called Christ Container. Dan Rack actually purchased the property from his father, I believe, it's public knowledge. I believe it was in 2021, transfer of title, and he subleased it to Christ Container. I've actually purchased containers from Christ Container for my business. I have receipts from them going back to 2020 when they were not there. I pulled it up just before. Actually, 2021, March of 2021, this company that is currently operating there was actually at 817 Harrington Court in Point Pleasant was their mailing address. They were definitely not manufacturing these shipping containers on that property when I purchased my 2 shipping containers, which I still own from them. I haven't seen a site plan for this property whatsoever. They're requesting to go from a quote-unquote house with working on my 1968 Dodge Charger to storing and modifying shipping containers, which what they do is actually they cut doors in it. I've got a door cut in mine. I know people get refrigerated containers, roll-ups, roll-downs. There hasn't been a site plan submitted with this. My wife actually just gave birth to twins in October October 16th, to be exact, was the date of their birth. I'm going to say October 8th, give or take, let's say. I was in my backyard over the holiday of Sukkot, and I counted 2 days back to back. I have a pool. 22 deliveries each day, in and out, over the span of 2.5 hours. And that's just the days that I was home and during the day myself. I'm not home, I work all day, so I'm not usually home. Obviously, the traffic, I've got, like I said, video documentation. They come up and down Kevin Court, U-turns, stopping, starting. I've seen 4 trucks, not just 1, 2, or 3. The trees were substantially cleared. When I moved in there was, I would say, you know, I'm not gonna try to bend the truth, but probably an acre worth of trees were cleared, give or take. It's an 8-acre property. There actually is a stream that goes straight across from, it would be between 3 Kevin and 5 Kevin, crosses between 6 and 4 Kevin, which is my property, and goes straight back. I don't believe a stream just suddenly stops. It goes somewhere underneath that driveway. It is Jackson Township owned. It's stormwater or floodwater or stream, not sure how you classify it, it's definitely there. Has there been an EPA report done on the property? You know, automotive fuels, hydraulic fluid, welding, definitely welding, cutting, you name it. It's being done back there. Again, you know, we're not getting into the quote-unquote operations. They did broach the operations a little bit, you know. Like Mr. Eckstein had also said, they got 1 fine of $250. I'm involved currently in a different township with a different zoning issue. They've made me have 3 court appearances so far. They fined me 4 times. And I'm actually in a commercially zoned area. And I'm trying to do something quasi-commercially zoned. This is going for an industrial, not a commercial. This is an industrial application, whether they're stating that or not, in a residential area. With quite a few you know, issues missing. Like I stated, it's not a house, it's an office building, 3-bay garage that wasn't there, et cetera. You know, they're bringing up the 1950 approvals and going on to the 1988 approval. The residential area was put up in, I believe, 1983. In 1950, the guy was probably working on his Model T still. He wasn't working on his 40-foot shipping container, putting in roll-up doors and refrigeration and insulation and skylights. You know, they're trying to stuff through a 30-year-old variance into 2024, for lack of a better term. That's really all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming forward. Any questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Good evening. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. If you would please, as you know by now, state your name, spell your last, and provide your address.
Tzvi Teicher, last name Teicher. My address is 148 White Road, Jackson, New Jersey.
Thank you.
So my property is on the corner of White Road and Kevin's. On Kevin's Court, we have no sidewalks. Our kids play on the streets like every kid should be able to play. And being that that driveway is so small, like you heard, that we have approximately, I would say, at least 5 trucks a day. Because they use their GPS and the properties behind, it takes the trucks up our block. And there's just, with 53-footer trucks, there's a very huge blind spot. And it just doesn't belong in our neighborhood. And I don't want to say what, God forbid, could happen with kids playing on some very small kids playing on the street and 53-footers just coming up and down your block all day. That's all I want to say.
Thank you so much for coming forward. Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Good evening. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. If you would please state your name, spell your last, and provide your address.
My name is Eli Goldbaum. Last name is Goldbaum, and I live at 14 Kevin Court.
Thank you.
Okay, so my property is in the middle of the circle, back to back with that driveway. So I have a very good view of all the trucks going up and down. Before I start, I wanted to say two things. Number one is, you guys know this is not the first time that this hearing was scheduled. This is probably the sixth, or so I lost count already. I work for a company that's actually based out of Brooklyn, and I travel to Brooklyn once a week. Typically, my day to travel is Wednesday. This is already my sixth or seventh time that I rescheduled my day because this is an important issue to me and my family. That's number one. Number two, I want to also mention, I think it's important to mention, I have no relationship really with Dan Rack or any of the, I'm neighbors to his property, but I don't really have any relationship. I certainly have nothing against him personally. As a matter of fact, I probably understand what he's trying to do. He's got a business to run, he wants to make money. I get it. That being said, I have a family, we have a life to live, and we want a certain quality of life and protections that we expect and deserve, I guess. I will say that when they originally started, I moved into this area about 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago in January. When I moved in, Dan Rack was still operating an excavating company. I don't know if it was Dan Rack or there was a Rack excavating company that seemed to still be operating. You maybe saw 1 or 2 trucks a week going in and out, probably less than that, but being generous, I would say it was a couple trucks a week going in and out. There was very, very little activity. Over time, maybe it was subleased to, like somebody mentioned, Dave's Landscaping. There was, here and there, you did see some trucks, but the activity was very, very minimal. Nobody's looking to make a big deal. Nobody was going to bring that up. When this operation started, I don't have the exact timeline like everybody else, but it's been going on for a while. When it first started, before there were any stop orders or anything like that, there were tens of trucks going every single day. I have 6 children. My oldest is not yet 10 years old. They play in the street. They get dropped off on the corner when the bus drops them off. There are no sidewalks on Kevin Court. You have these big trucks driving down the street. I mean, tens of trucks daily driving through a residential area with tens and tens of kids. Forget about kids, adults as well. I was driving up the block tonight when I came home from work at 6:30, and it's dark. There was a kid walking down the street. You can't see him. It's not rocket science. As far as operational, I don't really want to talk about operational. I understand we shouldn't be talking about that, but from what the attorney and testimony is trying to establish, that this current use has any relationship to what was previously, from my own observation, very blatantly, it's absolutely unrelated. I mean, you're talking about literally tens of industrial trucks, and like someone said, it's operating a regular industrial business in the middle of a residential neighborhood. I think it's very clear to any outside observer that this application is only to the benefit of the applicant and offers no benefit or any advantage to anybody else affected. And for that, I'll leave it at that for now.
Any questions? Thank you so much for coming forward. Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. If you would please lower that microphone. Thank
Is that
you.
better?
Yeah. And then if you would please state your name, spell your last, and provide your address.
My name is Shandy Berkowitz, Berkovits, and I live at 145 White Road. So I live like diagonal from the driveway of Christ Shipping Company. I live here for exactly 8 years, and it's been quiet. We really enjoyed living here. I actually have a picture on my phone from the beginning of April of 2022. That's when everything started. And we have trucks parked right in front of our house, waiting to figure out where to go, how to get in. And then you have trucks stopping like right next to them to see how to get in to help them because they're pulling out and they're pulling in. And it's basically impossible for a large truck to be able to just pull in. They would have to like go into the opposite lane to be able to go in and wait for the other truck to come in. And it feels a little bit unsafe, especially happening in rush hour times, that there are many cars and children waiting for buses. That's what I have to say.
Any questions? Thank you so much for coming forward.
Good evening. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you would, please keep your voice up.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Please state your name, spell your last, and provide your address.
Sylvia Hertz, Hertz, 103 Bellevue Avenue. I enjoy my quiet neighborhood, and I would want it to be like that, so please keep it that way.
Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Good evening. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you would, please state your name, spell your last, and provide your address.
Name is Shmuel Tress. Name is Shmuel Tress, last name Tress. Address 17 Jenny Lane, Jackson. I'd just like to add one point that I don't think anyone mentioned besides for the traffic. There's also, I live sort of almost right behind the property. There's a tremendous amount of noise throughout the day of trucks and tractors coming and going. A lot of banging, and it's just very disturbing throughout the day.
Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else wishing to come forward? Sir, I'm sorry, we can only give each person one time to come up. I apologize. You will be able to speak. Sir, you will be able to speak at the next, when they do come back. You will have that opportunity. Thank you. Seeing no one else come forward, I'm going to go ahead and close public session. Mr. Pfeffer, any comments?
No, we are allowed to hear the comments from the neighbors. Like I said, the substantial testimony is really needed from Mr. Rack. We'll be here at the next meeting. And I guess with that, I guess we would just ask what the date will be, and we will proceed.
Making me work.
Madam Chair, let me get just one question for Mr. Pfeffer. How many more witnesses do you intend to call?
At this time, I don't intend calling anyone other than Mr. Borden again to confirm the planning testimony and Mr. Rack.
And then Mr. Rack. So Mr. Rack will be here for the operations. Mr. Borden will testify, I guess supplement his
Planning testimony, yes.
his testimony based on the testimony of Mr. Rack.
Correct, yeah. I believe that's all the testimony. Yes.
For the chair, I want a clarification on that. Mr. Rack is the property owner, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Chris, is it true that does Chris Container operate out of this site?
Again, I believe Mr. Rack also operates his business on the site, but
I mean, is there going to be any representatives from Chris Container made available as
If
well.
need be, we could have a representative. And actually, someone from Quick Container was here at least one of the other hearings that we were.
I think it'd be advisable, because most of the comments I've
Understood.
heard from the public were container-related, not rack-related.
I will make sure, that I'll request that we have a representative of them as well. So, Mr. Hurley, there will be maybe possibly one additional witness.
I actually have a question for Mr. Pfeffer. And just looking at this picture, it's just so alarming to me. Is there any chance that one of these containers can fall over? Because, I mean, this just looks like an attractive nuisance. It's colorful, it's fun, there's bars. Like, if I was younger, I'd want to climb up it. Honestly, I just feel like if somebody climbs up one of these, can one of these topple over? Because they're not even level. They're not even on top of each other. There's also a lot of space in between them where a kid can just walk right through, an adult can walk right through. Like, it's just really unnerving to me, because I feel like maybe two kids, like if they start climbing, somebody starts climbing, these can fall over onto somebody. There's no fence or anything. Like, to me, this is like an immediate safety concern.
I will relay that message.
Food for thought for the operational testimony. So, Mr. Pfeffer, just looking at the upcoming agendas, I have March 20th and really April 17th. All the meetings before that are well full. So I don't know what works better for you and Mr.
Checking my
Borden.
calendar.
Mr. Borden may be away in the March meeting, so if we could take the April 17th meeting?
Very good. Okay. Where did my agenda go? Okay, application number 1, Dan Rack Excavating LLC, use variance 3458, block 21401, lot 52. This application will be carried for further testimony to the April 17th, 2024 meeting of the Jackson Township Zoning Board of Adjustment. No further notice shall be required by the applicant, and the applicant waives time, I presume. Thank you. So we'll see you on April 17th. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I'm the vice president.
Next application is application number 4, SSP Enterprising, doing business as Signs by Tomorrow / 7-Eleven Signs, use variance 3495.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Michael Malinsky of Fox Rothschild LLP, on behalf of the applicant, SSP Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Signs by Tomorrow. We're here this evening for a very simple application. We're here for a C2 variance to allow 2 LED fuel price signs on our gas canopy that will be 3 feet wide and 8 feet long, 24 square feet total. This is at Lot 3.01 of Block 3001.01, also known as 515 Monmouth Road, Unit 140. We are seeking tonight, there's one variance that, well, before we get started, let me address one issue regarding notice. In our notice, we reference that this property is in the HC Highway Commercial Zone. The property is actually in the Highway Commercial Mixed Use Zoning District. We feel, in accordance with NJSA 40:55D-11, that the contents of our notice, even though it referenced the wrong zoning district, is sufficient for the board to hear this application this evening. It sets forth the date of the application, the time and place of the hearing, the nature of the application, identifies the property, identifies the location and time that people could review any of the submissions and documents that were available. So because we meet the content requirements of NJSA 40:55D-11, we feel that this board has jurisdiction to move forward tonight and hear this sign variance application.
So just for a moment, this issue was brought to my attention by, I guess it was your associate attorney last week.
Yes, Amanda.
Yes, and I did discuss this with her. I have reviewed the notice, and it was represented to me that the 200-foot list, that certified 200-foot list that you received was for the correct property, and it was mailed to the correct 200-foot addresses. In my opinion, the mistake as to the zoning district itself does not invalidate the notice under the municipal land use law, because again, the content of the notice and the requested variances and the time, place, and date, location, all that stuff for the hearing was all included in the notice. Accordingly, it's my position that the board can accept jurisdiction despite the incorrect zone being referenced in the notice, as all of the other information was correct.
Any problems with hearing this, board? We can move forward.
Thank you very much. We are here tonight asking for a variance from Section 244-207A20 to allow 2 LED fuel price signs on the fuel canopy where none are permitted. Just for the sake of thoroughness, I think, although not called out, I think there may be 2 other variances. A variance from Section 244-207B7A to allow 8 wall-mounted signs at this pad site where 1 is permitted. Currently, there's 6. We're only adding the 2 that I explained earlier, which is the LED. And also from Section 244-207B7A to allow wall-mounted sign area of 186.1 square feet, where 80 square feet is the maximum permitted. Currently existing at this pad site is 138.1 square feet of wall-mounted sign area. We're only adding the 48 square feet I told you from the 2 LED signs we're adding. I have 2 witnesses with me this evening. I plan on only calling 1 unless there's specific questions regarding the installation of the sign. My 1 witness is Kevin Dixon, who's a professional engineer, professional planner from Dixon and Associates Engineering. If you'd like to swear him in at this time.
Absolutely. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you would please state your name, provide your affiliation, and your credentials, please.
Certainly. My name is Kevin Dixon, D-I-X-O-N. I am the managing member of Dixon Associates Engineering, LLC. My company was founded in 1984, and we provide land planning and engineering services for site development clients, as well as municipal and traffic engineering for municipal clients and public agencies, many of which we have worked for throughout the last 40 years, including township engineer, township planner, planning board engineer, planning board planner for various boards, Galloway Township, Hamilton Township in Atlantic County, Linwood, the city of Linwood, town of Hamilton, Washington Township, Burlington County. So I've provided testimony for engineering and planning in front of many boards.
So I didn't want to interrupt you, I'm sorry. Listen, I speak quickly, he was going so fast, I was like, I can't get it out. So forgive me,
Thank
this
you.
board accepts your credentials, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick, before we get started, I do have two exhibits I'd like to hand out. A1 is just what the LED signs will look like.
Thank you.
Michael, just for the record, you marked this A1, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to hand out A2 is just two 11 by 17 pictures of the site, one from Monmouth Road and the other from the intersection of Monmouth Road and Pine Drive.
That's what I was thinking. That's brutal. This, the prices.
Oh, yeah, that is not at this site.
That's good.
That is from another site, but I just wanted to give you an idea. That is what's going to be put up at this site, just so you could clearly see what was going on. No, not here.
Okay.
Kevin, could you please describe the site and the proposed signage for the board?
Hold on, just real quick before you begin. Can you represent into the microphone what A2 was again?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay, I just want to get it on the record.
A2 is two 11 by 17 pictures of the site, one from Monmouth Road, right before the driveway where you exit from Taco Bell, and the other is a picture from the intersection of Pine Drive and Monmouth Road.
And collectively, they'll be marked as A2.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question to Mr. Dixon. Do you want me to stand up here so that I'm also at a microphone and he is as well? Oh, okay. Thank you. Mr. Dixon, can you please describe the site and the proposed signage?
Sure. Of course, the board is familiar with the site. The site is a 162-acre mixed-use commercial development, the multitude of buildings, including along Monmouth Road, near the intersection or the interchange with I-195, and includes 7 buildings along Monmouth Road proposed. It also includes the 7-Eleven, which is the subject of this application, which has a gas station canopy in front of the actual building housing the convenience store of the 7-Eleven. The original approval allowed for 12 freestanding signs, total sign area well over 1,000 square feet. And the site plan, the approved site plan, includes a large freestanding sign almost directly adjacent to the 7-Eleven and several tenant signs, including 7 tenant signs along the frontage, one of which is also the tenant sign for this development. With the total square footage of signage that is out there, as I said, well over 1,000 square feet if you include the I-95 signage, 195 rather. The digital pricing for the fuel on this site is 10 square feet. And it is located directly adjacent to the driveway that leads into this fueling center. So what we have is a situation in which a 50-mile-an-hour roadway, approaching traffic at that speed, sees several commercial establishments and their signs prior to the ability to see the 10-square-foot gasoline-priced sign, which is directly in front of the driveway. It's actually past the driveway, but directly adjacent to it for this fueling facility, which basically means there is a limited amount of decision-making ability for the motorist to observe what that gas price is and make the decision to make that turn. We all understand how motorists routinely will check gas prices, especially when there's more than one fueling station in the area, and even more so today with gas prices fluctuating the way they do and maintaining a fairly high, we're glad they came down recently, but a fairly high price at this time. So people are shopping. A penny will make the difference for a lot of people, and they would try to examine both of those gas stations. Now, I know Wawa is a different town, different county, but it is right across the street. And we visually, we're talking about the motorist who's going to use their facilities to try to make that decision. And we believe that this sign is going to enhance their ability to make that decision more advanced of that decision point where they can slow down and make that turn in a safe manner.
Okay, it sounds like in describing the site and the proposed signs, you got a little bit into the positive criteria. So going into the positive criteria with regard to the C2 variance, what purposes of zoning do you think would be promoted if the board were to grant the variance to allow the 2 LED fuel price signs?
Well, from my experience, I would say that the enhanced visual pickup for motorists would satisfy purpose A, which would be to enhance this health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the public. And I think that this is a safety enhancement that I've seen and evaluated both on the private and public side many times before this. And it's always been my position that a greater visibility from a greater distance reduces confusion, whereas confusion increases or decreases safety, in my opinion.
And currently with the monument sign there, you have a Taco Bell sign before it, you have a Popeye sign, and you have several trees that, although thin right now, will still, the one closest hinders the view sort of the pricing. Is that correct?
There's no question that that tree will mature into a visual blockage of that sign eventually, further limiting the decision-making ability of the motorist.
Based on your knowledge, skill, and experience, and your expert opinion, the proposed signs will allow the motorist to more easily identify the gas prices from the road, allowing for safer ingress and egress of the motoring public. Is that correct?
They will.
Okay. Would also allow for safer internal site circulation, since now it would be more easily identifiable to see those prices if someone was at the Taco Bell or I think it's the Panda further down this development.
Yes, they're able to look down what I'll call the initial or the front marginal access roadway that cuts across and connects to various commercial pad sites, and able to observe that sign from their vantage point. And again, motorists routinely compare prices. They'll be looking across the street at the Wawa sign, which is very large by comparison to this proposed
a 24-square-foot sign. And they will be able to see that without having to maneuver out onto the highway to try to make that decision.
And also with the LED sign that's going to be facing across the way from Monmouth Drive, that'll allow the motoring public going down Pine Drive to see the gas prices as well. Is that correct?
Yes, facing Monmouth Drive, obviously, it doesn't do much for the northbound traffic or the southbound traffic. You don't see it until you're until you're passing it. Where it really comes into play is on Pine, again, where the motorist is trying to make that decision. They'll be able to see that from that intersection.
Okay. And they'll be able to make a choice whether or not they want to make a right and go to Wawa or go straight down Pine and go gas up at 7-Eleven. Is that correct?
Yes, and if they're local, they'll be seeing that, daily or however often they're going past those points. So they'll be keeping track of that. They'll know where to look. They'll be able to see it in a safe manner as they're passing through that area.
In addition to the positive criteria, we have to show the negative criteria. There's two aspects to the negative criteria. First, and that is whether or not the granting of the variance will create a substantial detriment to the public good or a substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. Do you think if the board were to grant this variance, it would create a substantial detriment to the public good?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, it will be an enhancement to public safety, which it would go to the C2 benefit of this grant of the variance if the board should so grant it. And the benefit would certainly outweigh any detriments, which we can get into on the other side of that. But there would be no significant detriment to the public good. On the contrary, it would be an enhancement of public safety.
Do you think the granting of this variance will create a substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance?
No, I don't. The sign that's being proposed is not only compatible with the surrounding area, but it is in keeping with the previous approvals that this site was granted. And it is, as I say, as an enhancement to the visibility of the sign, would only complement the previous approvals that were granted.
I have no other questions for Mr. Dixon unless the board has any questions for him or the professionals.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mr. Book.
Can you describe, or is there an intended limit in terms of the color that is going to be flashed? Is it going to be flashed? Will it be solid? Is there an intensity or an intensity issue? If I'm across the street, is the thing going to be striking me like with strobe flashes in terms of what?
There will be no flashing.
Okay.
This is only going to be, the lighting, the color will be white, and it will just display the price. That is it.
It will be consistent with the current monument sign that's out there.
That's correct.
Which is also a digital sign, but as I said, 10 square feet in area at the ground level.
All it will take is taking, it'll operate similar to the monument sign, but only it'll allow us to get more visible the gas prices further away by allowing us to place it on the gas canopy in those two locations.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr.
Madam
Hurley?
Chair Lady? I'm looking at the photographs that you submitted today, and I see on the opposite side of Route 537 that I can tell from the color, it looks like it's a Wawa gas station there.
Correct.
That's correct.
It has a freestanding sign it being Wawa, has a freestanding sign that displays the prices. Do you have any on 7-Eleven like that? Do you have a freestanding sign that displays the prices?
At other locations?
On this
No, at this
location?
site, no, we do not.
Well, there is a small.
There's only the monument sign that is that we're talking about, but not a freestanding sign. There's the monument sign that has 10 square feet for our prices.
So it has the prices?
Yes.
Okay. My concern here is that, well, let me ask you the question before I tell you what my concern is. Do you know of any other gasoline brand in New Jersey that has these price signs on a canopy?
Let me call Rajiv Krishna. He's the representative from Signs by Tomorrow, the sign installer.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening. If you would, please raise your right hand. Other hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, information, questions, or comments that you're about to present before the board will represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I will.
Thank you very much. If you would, please state your name.
Rajiv Krishna. The last name is Krishna.
Okay, and provide your affiliation and your credentials for the benefit of the board.
So I'm the owner of the sign business, SSP Enterprises, or Signs by Tomorrow. We've been in business about 30 years. I'm an engineer. I'm a graduate mechanical master's engineer from Chicago. We've been installing signs for 7-Eleven for the last 15 years. We do a lot of work in New Jersey and around the state.
Sir, this board accepts your credentials.
Can you please add others?
The question is, are you aware of any oil company that deals in gasoline and has service stations in New Jersey? Do you know of any service station, any brand that has these signs on their canopy?
Yes, absolutely. They're not very common. Most of the branded gas stations like Exxon or Sunoco don't have them, but a lot of the smaller gas stations, especially the Deltas, the Lukoils, have these on canopies where they basically just flash, they just have the digits on the canopy. They don't have leaded or unleaded, and they're usually in high traffic areas, but they do. They are not common, but they do exist.
Are these, I may have missed the point, these are not major brands?
They're not major brands, no. I mean, at least I have not seen them. If they are,
But they
I
are,
haven't seen.
they are in New Jersey someplace.
In New Jersey. Now, I'm talking about smaller brands in New Jersey exist with signs on the canopy, but not the major brands.
Well, my concern here is that we may be opening a can of worms here. I'm curious as to whether or not the applicant would be willing to abandon its the small gasoline sign that it has on, from the ground, and allow these canopy signs for purposes of just displaying the price. And I'm saying that because if I were to look at this application with an approval, the problem that I have here is already opening up a can of beans to a whole other myriad of gas stations looking to have their canopies modified. The second part of that concern is that if you already have, at least I can say, look, you're giving up something here and still maintaining a price sign at a higher elevation that is more easily viewed by the motoring public than a smaller sign as such, and it becomes more safe. Would you be willing to give up that ground sign for purposes of displaying the price? And you'll still have whatever is on that sign. I guess it says 7-Eleven or whatever.
Let me address both. First, with regard to opening up the can of worms, Your Honor, I don't think you open up a can of worms with regard to this application, because I think this site is unique in the sense that there is a lot of both monument signs and structures and trees which are blocking the view of the prices on the monument sign that exists there, which makes this a little bit different. This is not a standalone site where you have a freestanding sign that says, 7-Eleven gas, or you put it on a freestanding sign like you see at Wawa. This is a site where we're more limited in nature with a monument sign. And because of everything that exists on the site, I think that's what creates the need to allow the motoring public to more easily view the gas prices, because gas prices are significant nowadays with inflation and the price of everything. People want to know what they're going to pay. They're making that decision, and I think the motoring public for safer egress and ingress should know that as they're coming closer, traveling down Monmouth Road and also at Pine Road, which right now they would never even be able to see the prices on Pine Road.
I agree in a way that it can be unique, and I think I need to find that uniqueness to allow these signs on a canopy. The canopy is, if I'm not mistaken, is essentially an accessory structure here. The question becomes, do we open it up to existing gas stations that allow, that would prefer to have these a little higher so that everyone can see it? I understand your problem here. I understand your problem. I understand the smallest, the size of the sign for oncoming traffic at a moderate speed. I'm not going to say a speed there. At a moderate speed, it could create a problem.
Yes.
And if you had a higher sign, I understand your expert's testimony that it could satisfy purpose A for safety, things of that nature. But you already have a sign.
We do. We have it, the monument sign, but again, that I think what we're doing is to enhance safety here. I think we need it because right now where that monument sign is, you can't see it from Pine Drive, and you can't see it realistically. It's almost not, you can't see it as you're coming to the Taco Bell where you're coming out. You can barely see it.
Well, if you can't see it, then why not just say, we'll remove it?
As you get closer, you can. I don't think 7-Eleven was looking to remove or any signage. I think what makes this different from your regular gas station that may be on its own or at another location is that this location is unique based upon everything that exists on it. I mean, this site has an indoor-outdoor facility, has multiple restaurants right in the front, has hotels, has so much on this site going on as it currently exists that I think that's what makes this unique in
I'm not
its sense.
disputing that. I'm not disputing that because I agree with you that it may be a unique situation.
And that's why I think you're not open a can of worms.
I also know your problem that, the 7-Eleven representative is probably not here tonight to make a kind of decision. I know. Been there, done that. But my concern here is that this is kind of a unique situation. Your expert testified there is no major brand gasoline that has this type of sign, but there are unbranded types that do, and I don't know how they got it, but they do. So my concern is that you got a lot of signs here.
You're right. At other New Jersey locations, we actually have a freestanding sign, 7-Eleven does, with the gas prices, except we don't have that here. And that would address the issue where we wouldn't need this. And that's why we need to put it on we'd like to put it on the gas canopy.
I think that's what I said. I think that I agree with you in a way that if you had a larger freestanding sign, you wouldn't need these.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
But you already have a freestanding sign, and you have two of them in the direction of traffic, and now you want to put them on the canopy. That's my concern. If you can concede the removal of the freestanding, from my point of view, I don't know what the other board members feel, but my point of view, I would like to reduce the situation as best we possibly can. You got so many prices there, I don't know if to look up or look down.
Well, I don't have the authority to concede and I don't think 7-Eleven wants to remove anything with the monument sign, and as indicated, we do not have a representative from 7-Eleven here this evening. But again, I think, the monument sign that we have there is in character with the other monument signs, so I think ultimately there's no issue with allowing that, and I think we're not opening up a can of worms. As I said, and as agreed upon by Your Honor, this is a unique property. It's got a unique nature to it based on everything that exists there, which promotes and supports the need for the C2 variance relief for the gas canopy LED signs at this site. So we'd prefer and respectfully request that this board
not asking-
together allow the motoring public to, I mean, anyone that may not see that will absolutely see the monument sign when they're coming down Monmouth Road, so I
I'm not
think.
asking you to remove the signs. All I'm saying is remove the price signs on it. You can put whatever you want on there that. if it
Well, that's a
said-
digital sign right
If it
now.
says 7-Eleven on it or whatever it says, I don't.
It says 7-Eleven, but there's a digital sign actually already on that.
Right.
We'd
Maybe
like-
an entry, it could have an entry sign, I don't care, I understand it. But I'm trying to justify, in my mind, granting this variance when you already have price signs at ground level, and now you want several above ground level. And that's my only concern. Thank you.
Mr. Peters?
Thank you.
Mr. Peters?
The applicant's attorney pretty much set forth the examples I was going to offer the board with regards to the type of ownership and what you have along either side of the road. Wawa across the street is a standalone site. It's got a monument sign. It's got a freestanding sign 20 feet off the road. You don't need it on the canopy's 75 feet off the road. I suspect if 7-Eleven came in and the board wanted to give them the Wawa sign on their site, they get rid of all the signs. But that's not going to happen because there's a 500 square foot sign for the entire 130 acre property. So there are either 7 or 8 pad sites along 537, each of them with limited signage ability. So 7-Eleven's not coming in trying to put up a sign close to the street in the same view shed as the master sign, the large sign, or the street traffic signs. It has fireworks going off, says "Eat at Joe's." They're trying to put the price on the canopy so it's off the ground. That was the only distinction I was going to draw. I understand that 7-Eleven would like to have it. I understand Mr. Hurley has a concern about it, but I think it was, I don't disagree with the applicant's testimony about the unique situation that affects the tract of land on the south side of the road where the 7-Eleven gas station is. It's a multi-tenanted site.
So ironically enough, when I got this application, I had to laugh because towards the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, when we went back to school, my husband and I happened to be out that way. And he was like, I can't believe they didn't put up a bigger gas sign, or at least I didn't know what the sign was called.
Right.
Put signs up because it's virtually impossible to see that small
is.
sign. And he pointed out, he goes, just wait until that tree grows.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh, well, again, as he's somebody that's in his part-time job was an over-the-road truck driver. So of course, these are not things I would have thought of. So as I'm listening to you all, I'm thinking, well, that's so funny because you know, at some point you won't be able to see that. So again, I think as Mr. Peters pointed out, with the other large sign there, you have the Popeye sign. I mean, there are a lot of signs out there to put another large sign like Wawa has would be, you know, a little bit more difficult, but those type of signs I wouldn't have a problem with, you know, sitting in that area so somebody could see it as you're coming to it.
Thank you.
Because if you look at this picture, it's virtually impossible
Yeah.
to see that sign. Any other, I think you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say to Mr. Hurley's point, I think that the benefit of having the existing monument there is for those drivers that do drive down the road and are actually paying attention to the road, you can actually see it. So I think it is a benefit to the motorist. I mean, I think you're targeting different motorists at different points, but I think it's beneficial to have both of them.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I have a question. Is the monument sign double-sided?
Yes.
It is, okay.
The existing monument sign, yes, it is.
Okay, so to Mr. Hurley, I actually use that sign not to see the price of gas, but to see where to enter. And then if you miss that, then you have to go to the light, and then, you know, it's kind of a pain, so.
If I could add to that, I was waiting for Mike to finish, but one of the benefits of having both signs, to your question, would be that it's reinforcing to your decision not only to enter, but remember, the motorist is looking at the price of gas, and they are making that decision. So sign reinforcement, we've all learned through the years from pad sites, McDonald's has a little arrow that says enter, and I recognize you're saying, okay, to make that an entrance sign. But again, I think the motorist is focused on the pricing. So they're going to actually get the opportunity to see that one more time before they pull in.
So is this actually going to be on the front of the building facing 537?
It's,
Or,
if you look, it's going to be, if you look at A2, it's going to be on the corner there, closest to Monmouth Road, on the sign facing Monmouth Road, and then around that corner, it's going to be on the end there as well, facing Pine Drive, because if we move it over anymore, then no one would be able to see it from Pine Drive because it would be blocked by that large LED sign on the site. And that's why if you go to the second page of A2, you can see that one area right to the right as you come up Pine Drive is not blocked by the large existing, now it's LED sign that's there, and their prices will be there, so they'll be able to be seen from Pine Drive.
okay, so there would actually be one on each end then?
One on each end at that corner there. So it's visible from Pine Drive and also visible further down Monmouth Drive.
Okay.
Because that's the main concern is motoring public coming down this way because of all the monument signs and the trees you have there. They gotta be able to see what's there, what the prices are, to make a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I'd make a comment, if I may. I've mentioned this a number of times to board members here. Among my many careers, and I've had several of them, I was a construction engineer for a major oil company. And we were designing and building gasoline service stations. And one of the main concerns, and I understand your problem with not having a district manager here saying, yes, give up that sign. He'd probably have a heart attack if we suggested that to them, because sales wants those signs as many as they possibly can. I mean, I was confronted with a freestanding sign and working to put up this gasoline service station. As I said, it's a major oil company. And there were trees in the front, and they asked me, they being salespeople, can we cut those trees down? I said, no, they're not ours. Can we do something? Can we put some nails in it or something? No, you can't do that. But I know the concern here is, and it's a safety issue. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here about that sign being on the canopy. What I'm concerned about is establishing something now that's going to have a number of, we'll have Exxon come in, we'll have Shell come in, they'll all come in, Wawa may come in, so we want to put some signs on our canopies now.
Well,
But you look at Wawa, they've got that freestanding sign. Now, you don't have it, and it could, you don't have that ability there because of the location you're at. That in my mind, it gives me the ability to say this is a unique situation, and therefore we don't want to establish a precedent here. Get rid of the other signs. That's my only comment.
And that's what I think.
That's my only comment.
And I think I agree with that. I think that's what gives you the difference between this and, let's say, Texaco, Exxon, Sunoco that comes in at a freestanding site is the unique nature of this site and everything that's going on here is what makes this different. And the fact that we can't have a normal pylon sign with the digital prices that we would have at any other location. I mean, there's 7-Eleven on the expressway when I go to work and I see it. They got the digital sign right there so everyone's clear. Coming down the expressway, you know what the price of gas is if you want to pull in. You don't have that here. So that's why.
How do we define it? How do we define it as unique if another applicant, gas station comes in and they're at the corner of a mall?
Here's how we could define it as unique. I hope that you would agree. First, on a couple points. One, there's no identification of this building until the motorist is almost on top of it because of the preceding buildings. And the canopy is actually flush with the face of the adjoining buildings along that roadway. And that's the canopy. That doesn't even include the convenience store, which has its iconic image with the red and green stripes across the building, which makes 7-Eleven visible and identifiable. And you don't even see the canopy until you're so near it that you are making a decision at the last point. It's 100 feet off the roadway, the canopy itself. And then the building is almost another 100 feet, probably about another 85 feet back from there. So you do not have the visibility of this convenience store gas station as you're going 50 miles an hour down the highway. And I would say that that creates a very unique situation for this.
Well, that's exactly what I said. You know, you remind me when I was working for a living, I used to tell attorneys when they keep talking, I said, you know, it's yours to lose if you want to keep talking. And they keep talking and then they lose. So my only point here is that what you were saying is exactly what I'm saying from my point of view. I agree with you that it's a safer situation, but you're asking for a variance. And the problem that I see, if we're going to ask for a variance, you've got something there that may not, it's been said, you can't see it. So if you can't see it, why not concede to remove it? That's my only point. I agree with you on your testimony. You're preaching to the choir.
I think you want to have, I don't think you want to eliminate the monument sign or the price of the monument sign. You want to give the motoring public every available chance to, you know, be able to see what the prices are. Someone that may not be looking up further down the road may see the monument sign. Someone that doesn't see the monument sign until may notice it from as they're coming down the county road. I think when you, I think by adding the canopy sign and having the monument sign, I think just creates a safer situation here. And quite honestly, what we're looking for here is probably less of a sign area total than if we were able to do a pylon sign or a freestanding sign similar to what Wawa has across the street. And we were able to put our prices on there. We were able to put, you know, 7-Eleven, and it was identifiable. I mean, the total sign area that we'd be asking for with a normal sign package at our site is greater in nature than the little bit of relief we're asking here. So that's why I think, you know, this, you know, quite honestly, I don't think you want to eliminate any of it. I think by just adding this, you're just increasing the general health, safety, and welfare of the motoring public and giving them a better opportunity and more of an opportunity to more safely ingress and egress this site, and even from an internal circulation point, allowing, let's take away forget about the monument sign, but someone internally, okay, that's at this site that may be at the Panda Express down the road can't see the price on that monument sign because you got a Taco Bell and you got a Popeyes, but they'll see the canopy sign. Meanwhile, the motoring public down Monmouth Road will be able to see the monument sign.
And let me ask your expert a question then. Is there any place on this site that you can put a larger sign such as Wawa's?
It would compete with the sign that is already there if it was in any way in proximity to this 2-acre pad site.
So the answer is no.
That's
we
correct.
can.
That's correct. The answer is no.
You have a 458 square foot digital sign.
Wait a minute. The answer is no.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And that would require a variance as well, even if they could.
Any additional questions or comments? Mr. Malinsky, did I say that properly?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Any additional closing remarks?
No, we just respectfully request that the board grant our variance relief to allow the 2 LED fuel price signs at this location, 24 square feet in area each, for 48 square feet total.
Thank you. All right, board, it's up.
We have to open it up to the public.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I didn't see anybody, so I didn't think I seen you. I'm opening this up to the public. Seeing no one come forward, I'm going to go ahead and close public session. Now, board, it's up to us.
So for the chair, just a point of order, and this is a C variance, a basic bulk variance, or a C variance, and it only requires a simple majority for approval.
From the board, any questions or comments?
I can make a motion, if I may. I move that the application be approved. Making that motion on the following information. Number one, that this application is not a C1 variance, it's not a hardship type situation, it's a C2 flexible C variance. And the requirements that are put forth for purposes of proof are the positive criteria and the negative criteria. I accept the testimony of the applicant's expert relative to the positive criteria in that it satisfies the purposes of zoning, subparagraph A. It's a safety issue. There's no question in my mind in that regard. I accept the statements, not the testimony of the attorney, but the statements of the attorney, is that the monument signs that are there that currently have the prices can't be seen from either direction. And as a result of that, there would be a necessity to have a sign that's somewhat bigger or higher so it's visible to the motoring public without having to strain or without having to make a snap decision. That becomes a safety issue, so I think the aspect of the positive criteria has been satisfied. Relative to the negative criteria that is required to be established, the signs that are being requested here seem to be consistent with the development of the area in general. There's a lot of restaurants there, a lot of different types of stores with different types of signs, some being on the buildings themselves, maybe higher or as high as this canopy sign. So as far as its inconsistency with the development of the area, I see no inconsistency. I don't see any detrimental impact as a result of that. Relative to the master plan and the zoning ordinance, it seems that this application has been previously approved for the uses that are permitted. This is an accessory, in my mind, it's an accessory structure to the permitted use of the gasoline service station. It's a cover for the island. That in order to have gotten the approval for the gasoline station itself, it would have to have been consistent if it got a variance, a zoning, a D variance, had to be consistent with the master plan and inconsistent with, and consistent with the zone plan in general. I don't see this makes any major difference in that regard to any decisions that have made previously. So based on that, I think the applicant has met its positive and negative criteria. I still have the concern relative to the sign. I want to make sure that if this board finds, grants an approval of this application, that we make sure that we make statements in the resolution, at least in my mind, for my purpose, that it's a unique situation. The unique situation being that a freestanding sign similar to the size of the sign of Wawa across the street cannot be placed on this property for the reasons stated, and I accept the engineer's testimony in that regard. So based on that, I move that the application be approved as a flexible C2.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Stafford Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Fritsch?
Yes.
Mr. Book?
Yes.
Ms. Parnas?
Yes.
Does Mr. Hyman vote? Yes. Mr. Hyman?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes. Yes.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. All in favor?